Ty thought his life was perfect. A strong marriage, a successful career, a cozy home. But one day everything falls apart because of a revelation that he never expected. An evening that began as an ordinary one will turn into a test of strength for him, changing everything that he considered his world. "You what?" I exclaimed to my wife. Looking back, I realize I should have noticed that something was wrong weeks ago. For over 7 weeks, my wife Brianna has been unusually attentive to me. Instead of just toast and coffee, she's been preparing a delicious breakfast each morning. She's been cooking my favorite dinners, even pairing them with wine. After dinner, she changes into new lingerie and becomes very affectionate, eventually pulling me into bed early. Did I ever question these changes in our 24-year marriage? Not once. I happily embrace these adjustments as our new normal, especially since our youngest child had moved out for college just a few months earlier. I wanted to reciprocate and do more for Bree as well. I made an effort to be home every evening by 5 p.m. I began taking her out on dates to nice restaurants, attended several small local theater productions with her, went dancing for the first time in months, and brought her flowers. I was fully prepared to enjoy the perks of being empty nesters. My name is Tyler Winslow, but you can call me Ty. My wife Brianna, or Bree, and I have enjoyed a wonderful marriage for nearly 25 years, or so I believed. Like all marriages, we've experienced our highs and lows, but the good times have greatly surpassed the bad. I was satisfied with my life. I am employed at a prominent publishing house, where over the years I have gained expertise in every aspect of the publishing industry. This includes editing and assessing submissions, meeting with authors, negotiating agreements, collaborating with design specialists, creating project schedules, managing marketing budgets, and handling movie rights. I take great satisfaction in introducing new books and debut authors to the public. As a result of 20 years of extensive experience, I have advanced to the role of senior director within the company. My wife, Bree, is an exceptionally attractive woman nearing 45. We both maintain our physiques thanks to good genetics, an active lifestyle, and healthy eating habits. People often remark that we make a good-looking couple. After our youngest son started kindergarten, Bree returned to work and has been serving as a paralegal at the large law firm Thomas, Dixon, and Harris. She has risen to the position of managing paralegal, where she assigns incoming tasks to her team of subordinate paralegals. Last Wednesday evening, my life changed unexpectedly. I arrived home around 5 p.m. as usual, to find Bree busy in the kitchen preparing dinner. For the past few weeks, she has been cooking meals that are far more elaborate than what we had before the kids moved out. I kissed her on the back of her neck as I entered the kitchen. Recently, Bree would turn around and give me a full-body kiss at this point, but this time she did not. "Don't you value the incredible kisses I've been giving you for the past 2 months?" I exclaimed. "What's going on?" "Nothing," she replied. "But I'm happy to have my man home," she added instead. She remained focused on her work at the countertop, appearing somewhat distant, as if she didn't want to take even a moment to return my kiss. "Is something bothering you?" I asked. "You seem distracted." "No, nothing at all," she responded. "Change your clothes, and when you come downstairs, I'll have a glass of your favorite wine ready for you." It seemed she was trying to hurry me out of the kitchen rather than share a few moments of intimacy. I ignored the slight feeling that something was off as I climbed the stairs to the bedroom. After hanging up my suit and placing my dress shirt in the laundry basket, I changed into something more comfortable, my Dockers and a pullover shirt. Dinner was simple, yet clearly made with extra care, as Bree had been doing for several months. We started with a fresh salad and enjoyed a main course of roast pork over riced cauliflower. As we raised our glasses, Bree looked at me and said, "You know I love you, don't you?" Her tone felt different from the usual, "I love you," to which I responded as always, "I love you too." After our meal, we cleared the table together. Bree put the food away while I handled the dishes. She mentioned she was going upstairs to change into something more comfortable, and I found myself looking forward to seeing her relaxed. When I stepped into the family room, I noticed the lights were softly dimmed. Bree was lounging on the sofa, looking relaxed and beautiful. I knelt beside her and kissed her, feeling the warmth between us. We spent a quiet evening together, sharing stories and exchanging soft gestures, each moment deepening our connection. As we relaxed together on the sofa afterward, I mentioned that she had seemed especially affectionate lately, and I appreciated how close we felt. "I'm glad we've rekindled some of the connection we lost over the years," I said, kissing her gently. Our conversation shifted, and I complimented her on looking incredible for her age. Bree smiled, returning the compliment. Later, as I was drifting off, Bree gently said, "Baby, I need to talk to you about something." "Anything," I replied, barely awake. She took a breath. "You know how much I care about you, right?" "Yes, and I feel the same way," I replied. "Honey." She whispered, almost hesitantly, "This Friday, I've planned to go on an overnight trip with a colleague from work." It took a moment for her words to register. I opened my eyes, looking at her in surprise. "You're going on a trip? With who?" "It's just an evening with a friend from my office. It won't change how we feel about each other." I sat up, trying to understand. "What do you mean? This sounds unusual." She looked at me earnestly. "He's a good friend, and we've gotten close. I care about him too." I was fully awake and attentive to the conversation. I began dressing to show that our intimate moment was coming to an end. It was clear to Bree that I was upset. "Please, Ty, don't be like this. I still love only you, and you still love me. It will be just this once, and then it will be over. In a week, we'll be back to how we are now, and you'll forget all about it." "I don't think so, Bree," I replied dismissively. "Who is this Prince Charming, Bree? Why now, when everything is going so well for us? Do you want to completely ruin our marriage?" Bree, now slipping into her satin robe, responded, "I don't want to give you his name because it's not important for you to know, and I don't want you to try to retaliate against him. Besides, he's bigger than you and would probably hurt you in a fight." "Not if I'm angry," and with a baseball bat in my hands, I countered. "And," Bree continued, "it will only happen this one time because he's leaving Sunday night for his regular job in New York and won't be back. He'd better leave town," I told her. "Otherwise, the next time he comes to court, he'll be on crutches." Beyond my initial anger at Bree's announcement, I began to feel a sense of loss. Bree and I had been together for over 20 years. She had been my only lover since we first became intimate in our senior year of high school. I had been tempted but had never been physically involved with another woman. "So, how long has this affair been going on?" I asked. "It's not an affair. We've barely touched each other." "What do you mean by barely touched each other?" I wanted to know. "Do you mean holding hands, hugging, kissing? Does it include petting?" Bree didn't answer my questions, which made me think it had reached the petting stage. Otherwise, she would have admitted to the lesser forms of affection. He was assigned to our team about 6 months ago from a well-respected New York law firm to handle a particularly complicated tax case. Due to its complexity, several paralegals, including myself, have been assisting him with extensive research. Additionally, I've collaborated closely with him to create the charts and graphs we plan to present in court. Over time, we've developed a close relationship. 2 months ago, he confessed that he had strong feelings for me and wanted to be intimate. I had no desire to discreetly meet at a rundown motel or stay late at work just to engage in a brief office affair. Our connection was meaningful and too genuine for such a superficial relationship. We wanted a special evening just for ourselves. He asked if I could think of an excuse to take a weekend trip or even just an overnight stay sometime. I told him that I doubted I could come up with a reason to take that much time away. Moreover, I mentioned that I really don't want to deceive my husband. He then inquired whether my husband would be okay, or could be convinced, to allow us to spend a day, a night, or a weekend together. I responded by saying that I knew you were deeply in love with me, but I wasn't sure if you'd consider divorcing me over a one-night affair. I didn't think you would, especially if you knew it was a one-time event and wouldn't happen again. But I couldn't be certain. Why are you doing this to us, Bree? Our marriage has everything we could ever want. We love each other, have amazing intimacy, wonderful children, no financial issues, and good health. Why? My friend has made me feel like something is missing. You're the only man I've ever been with, and I feel the need to experience more. He has shown me there's more with him, and it would fulfill me as a woman. Additionally, he cares for me, and I have feelings for him too. It's not a shallow affair. But Bree, I exclaimed, we've had such a wonderful relationship. You're the only woman I've ever been with, and I'm the only man you've ever had. You don't understand, Ty. I need this, I want him. Why on earth do you need this? I asked. He is an exceptionally charming man who is younger than me, yet he still finds me captivating. I feel a strong attraction to him, one that I can't seem to ignore. I want to experience this connection, even if it's just once. He confided that he feels the same way. Please let me have this moment. Then I'll be devoted to you forever. I can't agree to this, I replied. It could damage what we have and strain our marriage. It won't harm us, she insisted. If you let me have this experience, I'll be the best partner you could ask for. I'll take care of everything, cooking, household tasks, everything. I'll be attentive and supportive, and you'll have my devotion always. I promise, you'll never feel neglected. But I'll still feel that I've lost something important, I responded. For me, that would be a deep betrayal. You'll have to find a way to accept it. I need this experience to feel complete, but it won't change my commitment to you. So, this is why you've been so affectionate lately. It wasn't just about our recent life changes. You hoped that by being kind, I'd be more open to this idea. That's not going to happen, I said firmly. Despite my arguments, Bree was steadfast in her decision. I realized she had made up her mind and wouldn't be swayed. Now she would have to accept whatever came next. I headed upstairs to the master bedroom, packed some clothes and toiletries for the next day, and then moved to the guest room, which in our spacious house featured its own bathroom. As I was organizing my things, Bree stopped me. Please don't act this way, Ty. Nothing is going to change. I know you're a bit upset right now, but everything will be resolved by Sunday afternoon, and we can get back to being ourselves. I'm more than just a bit upset, I replied in a very calm yet deliberate tone. If you go through with this, we will never be ourselves again. Without saying another word, I closed the guest bedroom door in her face and was left alone with my thoughts. I thought about all the usual obvious options: divorce, moving out, kicking Bree out, which was more appealing, physically stopping her from going on her date, contacting her parents, reaching out to our kids, and more. Divorcing her was out of the question. Despite her temporary lapse, I still loved her deeply. I dismissed the other obvious choices. I wasn't going to leave my own home. Additionally, no matter what happened, Bree would likely do her best to make things right, meaning I'd end up with both a maid and a intimacy SLV for the rest of my life. I had no intention of involving the family and exposing her because I wanted to keep this conflict just between us. She might decide to cancel her rendezvous if her family persuaded her otherwise, but that would mean her decision was influenced by others. Moreover, that could make her want to keep future dates secretive. If she chose not to pursue Prince Charming, she would have to make that decision based on the strength of our marriage. It was Thursday evening. Without a doubt, Bree had waited until nearly the last minute to announce her date. This limited the time she would have to deal with an angry husband, and reduced my opportunity to convince her that her date was a bad idea. The short time frame also restricted my ability to prevent her date. My mind wasn't functioning clearly. I was terrified of losing my wife. She mentioned having feelings for this man. Perhaps now that the kids had moved out, she was considering leaving me for him. That thought would completely break my heart. After being close with him, she might come to prefer that over our own intimacy. Alternatively, she might start exploring new interests or experiences in relationships. Bree and I have been together for 25 years, and while things had become familiar, I still found our connection comfortable and enjoyable. Even after all these years, her presence and affection were something I cherished. The thought of her in a stylish outfit, or even wrapped in a towel, was still enough to make me smile. I felt confident that I always made her happy in our relationship, and that was something I valued deeply. I loved seeing the joy in her eyes and sharing those special moments. Then I began to wonder if I could prevent this situation. Maybe I could somehow make sure her plans didn't go forward. If Prince Charming was out of the picture, at least temporarily, I would have the chance to talk to my wife, remind her of what we shared, and find a harmless way to ensure she wouldn't consider this again. Late Thursday night, as I was about to fall asleep, I had an idea. If I couldn't stop Bree directly, maybe her workplace could. I was aware that Thomas, Dixon, and Harris enforced a policy about employee relationships. If someone found out about Bree's interest in a colleague, they might address the possible effects it could have on her position. The next morning I was the first to get up. Usually I'd make coffee for Bree, but that day I skipped it. When she said good morning, I responded simply, "Don't do this." Then I left the house, skipping our usual goodbye. I'm sure she noticed the difference. My plan, if you can call it that, was to have a short conversation with the managing partner, William Thomas. Over the years, I had met him several times at various social events hosted by his law firm. He struck me as a decent person, approachable and grounded. On a personal level, I wanted to inform him about what was going on between Bree, me, and the unidentified New Yorker in his office. Maybe he could discuss with her the repercussions of her upcoming date the following night. Although I wasn't a lawyer, I believed that Thomas, Dixon, and Harris would prefer to avoid the risk of an intimacy harassment lawsuit from my wife should she become disgruntled with the company for any reason. On Friday late morning, I drove downtown to the offices of Thomas, Dixon, and Harris. I rode the elevator to the top floor, where the three partners had their offices along with spacious meeting rooms for their key clients. The main office area was expansive and open, featuring a single desk in the center. To the right, there was a lounge or waiting area furnished with plush, overstuffed chairs, a sofa, and a coffee table. Adjacent to that was a fully equipped bar built into sleek wall-mounted cabinets. The walls were adorned with modern, tasteful, and pricey artwork. I had visited this space several times for small social gatherings with Bree. Emily Stratton, known as the Lioness, was stationed at the entrance guarding the partners' offices. Over the years, I had met Emily at numerous local gatherings and social events, and we had become friends. Among everyone at the law firm, Emily was likely the most amiable. She always wore a smile and maintained a cheerful demeanor. Although she was around 55 years old, her age didn't diminish her attractiveness. Her face was somewhat plain, or at least not stunning like a movie star's, but I found her genuinely beautiful. Standing roughly 5 feet 4 inches tall without shoes, her physique was captivating. She didn't dress in revealing outfits that highlighted her feminine features. Instead, she consistently donned a suit jacket paired with matching pants or a skirt. When she chose a skirt, it was typically ankle length with a slit reaching only the knee, subtly hinting at her shapely calves. Occasionally, I caught Emily without her jacket, wearing either a loose blouse or a sweater. While she never displayed cleavage, it was evident she had a well-endowed figure, likely at least a D-cup. Her golden blonde hair was always neatly tied in a professional bun, and she wore glasses. As soon as I entered through the sturdy, cut-glass doors, Emily noticed me. She greeted me with a smile, stood up, and gave me a brief hug. Despite my sour and unsmiling mood, I couldn't help but smile back at her. "Wow, Ty, it's been a while. Did you come all this way just to see me?" she remarked. I suppose she didn't realize I needed to speak with the senior partner. "I need to speak with Mr. Thomas for a few minutes," I replied. "It's important and personal." "Mr. Thomas is available," Emily responded while checking her appointment book. "But I don't see you listed on his schedule. He's quite busy today with meetings and clients. Is there something I can assist you with?" "I appreciate the offer, Emily, but I really need to talk to Mr. Thomas. It's very personal, and I only need a few minutes of his time." She could sense the gravity of my request from my expression. "This is related to your wife, isn't it?" the insightful Emily inquired. I was fond of Emily and didn't want to trouble her with details about my troubled marriage. "Maybe," I simply answered. Putting on her glasses, Emily began reviewing the partners' daily schedules. "Mr. Thomas is just about to wrap up a meeting. He has roughly 30 minutes before he heads out to lunch with some important clients. Once he's back in his office, I'll handle things and request a few minutes of his time for you." While waiting for Thomas to return to his office, I settled in the lounge area. It wasn't long before Emily approached me with a cup of coffee. "I added a shot of Bailey's," she said. "Looks like you could use it." At that moment, Emily's intercom rang. I heard Mr. Thomas say, "I'm back in my office, Emily. Has anything come up?" Emily seized the opportunity. "Mr. Thomas, I have Tyler Winslow here with me. He would really like to speak with you for a few minutes. It's important to him." Mr. Thomas seemed to weigh his schedule. "If you believe it's important, Emily, let him in. I can spare about 5 minutes, then I need to leave." Emily guided me through another set of glass doors, down a brief hallway, and to a large wooden door with intricate carvings. The sign read, "William Thomas, Counselor at Law." She opened the door, gestured for me to enter, and then closed it behind us. I found myself in a spacious office. Mr. Thomas stood behind a sizable desk at one end of the room. Several chairs were arranged in front of the desk, and there was a lounge area at the opposite end, with a chair, sofa, and coffee table. His law degrees were prominently displayed on the walls. Mr. Thomas walked around his desk to approach me, extending his hand for a shake. "Ty, it's good to see you. How have you been? Still working in publishing?" "I'm fine," I responded without much enthusiasm. "Well, Ty, Emily believes it's important for you to talk to me. If it's important to her, it's important to me. What's troubling you?" Suddenly I reconsidered speaking with Mr. Thomas, but I began to express what I felt I needed to say. "I'm sorry to bring this up, Mr. Thomas. Now, I'm feeling embarrassed about it." "What's going on in your life, Ty?" he asked, clearly interested in my issue. "The situation is, Mr. Thomas, my wife Bree has informed me that she plans to spend the night with one of your associates this Saturday. She's determined about her overnight date, and I can't convince her otherwise." Mr. Thomas was a very insightful lawyer. "And you want me to help in some way to prevent this? Maybe talk to Bree or the associate involved. Is that correct?" "That was my initial intention when I came to your office, Mr. Thomas. But I've reconsidered. This is my issue, and I should handle it without involving others. I'm sure you're aware that we have a company policy regarding fraternization between employees, especially when they're in the same department and one has authority over the other. It could expose us to potential lawsuits if their relationship deteriorates. Bree is our top paralegal. She's been with us for a long time and is frequently approached by overly interested lawyers. I'm the one who hired these lawyers. I chose them for their exceptional qualifications in their respective fields. I also selected them because they were assertive in pursuing their cases. I was like that when I was a trial lawyer, and I'm not entirely proud of how I handled relationships with the women I worked with. Bree has been handling these individuals for years. It's hard to believe one of them managed to reach her. All I could respond was, "Yes, sir." "Ty," Mr. Thomas placed his hand on my shoulder. "Our current fraternization policy is ineffective. I could and should revise it to make it more strict, with clear consequences for any breaches. However, I can't do that before Saturday. You know how lawyers are. They need time to draft it, review it, consult with other attorneys, and so on before it can be implemented." "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Thomas. I'm truly sorry for bringing this up. It's my issue, and I'll handle it myself." I turned and left the office, heading back to the entrance where Emily was waiting. "How did everything go?" she inquired. I shouldn't have brought this problem to Mr. Thomas. I feel foolish. I then asked if I could take a few minutes to relax in the lounge area. "Of course. I'll get you another spiked coffee, or something stronger if you prefer." I sat in one of the comfortable chairs to collect my thoughts. I felt stuck and couldn't find a way to prevent Bree from going on her overnight date with Prince Charming. I buried my face in my hands, feeling sorry for myself. Then I heard Emily say, "It's too early for drinks. Let's go have lunch." Spending time with Emily would do me a lot of good. That would be great. She used her intercom to ask a co-worker to cover her desk while she took an extended lunch break. Then she grabbed my arm, and we left together for a restaurant that Emily particularly enjoyed. We each began with an iced tea, but before placing our orders, Emily expressed a desire to understand the issue bothering me. I shared my entire story with her. After that, we proceeded to order our meals. While I nibbled on my Caesar salad and Emily savored her soup and half a sandwich, we engaged in some light conversation. Once we finished eating, we decided to get coffee. The conversation was quiet until Emily suddenly surprised me by saying, "Did you know my late husband was a fighter pilot? I was aware that you were a widow and that your husband had passed away some time ago, but I didn't realize he was a fighter pilot," I responded. "Yes, he flew jet fighters. I married him the week after he graduated from the Air Force Academy. He spent a year training as a pilot before being assigned to the A-10s. After 6 months of training on the A-10, we were relocated to our first permanent base, Davy Monthon AFB near Tucson. I understood that the A-10 was an attack aircraft the Air Force used to support ground operations for the Army. Officially named the Thunderbolt II, after the renowned World War II Thunderbolt, most pilots referred to it as the Warthog due to its unattractive appearance compared to other jet fighters and its frequent low-altitude operations. Joe died 6 years later during an air combat tactics training mission. An inexperienced wingman accidentally collided with his plane. Over those 6 years, Joe was deployed to the Middle East twice. He must have performed some impressive maneuvers because he received the Silver Star, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and 2 Bronze Stars. As Emily spoke about her husband, her eyes filled with tears for a moment. "He was always my hero," she said. "Maybe that's why I never remarried." "However," she continued, "the reason I'm sharing this is that Joe often talked about his training, especially his air-to-air tactics. Some were offensive, but most were defensive since the A-10 was slower compared to other jets. He explained a scenario called 1v2, where an enemy fighter would attack his 2-ship formation from behind. Joe would initiate a sharp turn to counter a potential missile strike. If Joe's pair remained in formation, the enemy would see them as a single target and could potentially take both out in one move. To prevent this, the fighters executed what Joe referred to as a defensive split. At this stage, the A10 on the inside of the turn would dive low, while the other A10 would climb high. The attacker then faced a decision. If he pursued the low A10, the high A10 would swing around and shoot him down from behind. Conversely, if he targeted the high A10, the low A10 would quickly return to engage and take him down. The key point is that no matter which option the enemy chose, it would be a mistake, and Joe would prevail. I was impressed by Emily's understanding of fighter tactics, but I didn't grasp the relevance. "Are we still discussing Bree's date?" I inquired. Emily met my gaze and replied, "Give her an option. Whatever she decides, you'll come out on top." At that moment, Emily took my hand, looked deeply into my eyes, and flashed me the most inviting smile imaginable. After having lunch with Emily, I returned to work. I stayed late because I preferred not to spend the evening with Bree. I even made a stop at my favorite late-night spot, the Iris Club, to have a few drinks with friends. When I got home at 10 p.m., Bree was waiting up and clearly upset. "Didn't even call to let me know you'd be late?" "I went to great lengths to prepare a nice dinner for us. It's in the fridge if you want to eat anything. Plus, I was hoping you might come back to our bed tonight and make love to me." She then noticed I was slightly intoxicated. "Have you been drinking?" "Yes," I replied. "I stayed out late because I didn't want to deal with you tonight. I had a few drinks to help me forget about what you plan to do tomorrow night. Now I'm really drunk and heading to bed." "Please, Ty," she pleaded. "Don't worry about tomorrow night. It will be over and forgotten before you know it. We'll be the same as before." I ignored her and headed straight to the guest room, shut the door, undressed down to my underwear, and collapsed onto the bed. Oddly enough, I woke up early the next morning. After having coffee and toast, I tackled some weekend chores like mowing the lawn and pulling weeds. When I returned inside, Bree was getting ready to leave. "I'm going to the spa to get my hair and nails done," she declared. "I'll see you in 3 or 4 hours." I simply had another cup of coffee and watched her leave without saying anything. Before she left, I said, "Don't go through with this, Bree. It won't turn out well for you." I took a shower, freshened up, and went to the grocery store. Later that afternoon, Bree came back. It was clear she was dressing up for her date. Her hair was elegantly styled, and her fingernails and even toenails were painted bright red. But I had been busy too. As Bree walked through the living and family rooms, she paused and called out to me in the kitchen, "Ty, why is the rug rolled up and the coffee table pushed against the wall?" I peeked out from the kitchen and responded, "I cleared space for a dance floor. I also moved the large sofa in the living room to a position in front of the fireplace." "Why are you doing all this?" Bree asked. "I'm doing it for you," I said. "I want to persuade you to stay home tonight and enjoy a romantic evening with me. Come into the kitchen with me," I invited. "Let me show you what's planned." As Bree followed me, I pointed out that the dining table was set for 2 with our finest china and crystal. It was adorned with our sterling silver cutlery and featured a large bouquet of roses in the center, flanked by candles on each side to enhance the room's ambiance. The table was set up just like in a fancy restaurant. 2 forks were placed to the left of the dinner plate, while a knife and 2 spoons were arranged on the right. A dessert spoon lay horizontally above the plate, and each setting included a crystal water glass. "I can see what you're attempting, Ty, but it won't work. You know I have other plans for tonight." "I understand your plans, Bree. However, you can always change them if something better comes along. Would you prefer to let me down or choose Prince Charming instead?" "Please, Ty, don't do this to yourself." "Come with me to the kitchen," I said. Inside, various dishes were in different stages of preparation. First, I've prepared a chilled green gazpacho soup topped with chopped yellow tomatoes, cilantro, and cucumber. Next is my own salad creation, chopped iceberg lettuce with avocado and bacon, dressed with ranch. After a small shot glass of lime sherbet to cleanse your palate, we'll have the main course, a 5-ounce pork chop stuffed with rice and herbs, covered in béarnaise sauce. For vegetables, there's asparagus mixed with chopped cauliflower sautéed in garlic butter, accompanied by au gratin potatoes. Please stop, Ty. This is too much. It sounds amazing, but you can't persuade me to stay in tonight. Let me try, I replied. After a brief rest, I'll serve dessert. A small cup of vanilla bean ice cream topped with a shot of green crème de menthe, followed by coffee with a liqueur of your choice. For music, I've chosen my favorite CD, One Stormy Night, by the Misty Moods Orchestra. It features soft instrumental melodies, with the sounds of rain and a thunderstorm gradually building until it's overhead. It's perfect for slow, intimate dancing. Of course, I'll have a fire burning in the fireplace. Ty, I need to get ready. I bought a new dress for tonight, and I don't want to be late. Bree went upstairs to the bedroom. When I heard the shower running, I followed her and changed into my black dress slacks, a black spun cotton dress shirt, and my dance shoes. Wearing a suit and tie would have been too formal for hosting at home. By the time Bree returned downstairs, she looked stunning. She wore an elegant little black dress that was both stylish and flattering. The dress was knee-length with a tasteful slit, and her black heels added a sophisticated touch. "How do I look?" she asked. Though I felt a pang of disappointment, I kept a calm, neutral expression with a hint of encouragement. "You look amazing, like you're ready to be swept off your feet," I replied. "It would be nice to think you dressed like this for me and not for your Prince Charming." "This is a special occasion, Ty," she said. "I wanted to look my best. I'll dress up for you another time." George Michael's Careless Whisper played on Sirius Radio, one of my favorite songs. I turned up the volume slightly and asked, "May I have one dance before you leave?" She hesitated briefly, but then agreed. "Of course." I took her hand, and we danced slowly, cheek to cheek. The familiar closeness felt comforting. "You're wearing my favorite cologne," she noted. "English leather," I replied. As the song neared its end, I gave her a gentle kiss on the side of her face. She seemed to enjoy it, responding warmly. Maybe there's still hope, I thought, but then she gently stepped back. "No, Ty, don't. You know I'm going out. We can reconnect another time." For one last time, I asked, "It's not too late to change your mind." "I'm not going to do this, Ty," she replied, stepping away. "I'm going on this date and I don't want you to interfere." "I understand, Bree," I responded. "I can see you've made up your mind, and it's final. But before you leave, there are 2 things I'd like you to do." Bree looked at me with curiosity. "First, just take a look at the dining room with the candles lit and the lights dimmed low. I wanted to create a romantic setting for us." She softened. "We can have a romantic dinner next week, Ty." I took her left hand in mine and gently slipped off her wedding and engagement rings. "I think it's best to leave these here for tonight." Bree hesitated but then nodded, setting her rings on the table in the foyer before she left. As Bree turned to grab her shawl and clutch purse, the doorbell rang. Through the glass-paneled door, we could glimpse someone outside. Who could that be at this hour? She wondered aloud. Being the closest to the entrance, she went to open it. "Emily." "What?" she whispered softly. "Emily, what are you doing here?" she eventually inquired. I moved beside Bree and extended my hand to help Emily step over the threshold into the foyer. Bree then noticed the cocktail dress Emily was wearing. Gone was the modest secretary she knew from work. The dress was a bold red off-the-shoulder style that seemed like it would drape over her prominent cleavage, if not for the 2 spaghetti straps adorning her shoulders. Each strap was tied with a bow, and pulling the bow would cause the dress to slip to the floor. The gown wasn't short, reaching about mid-calf, but featured a slit that revealed the tops of her red French-patterned stockings. Her hair was elegantly styled atop her head, secured with a large red bow. She looked not just good, but stunning. Ty invited me when he dimmed the lights in the dining room, Emily replied coolly. He promised me a candlelit dinner, slow dancing to romantic music, cuddling by the fireplace, and an entire night of more passion and intimacy than I could ever imagine. What girl could resist that? You look so different outside of work, Bree exclaimed. I enjoy dressing up for special occasions, Emily responded. She then added, You look stunning as well. That dress is incredibly intimate. Stanley is definitely going to want to take it off. Stanley. You know about Stanley? Of course, Stanley Wilbur, Emily answered. Everyone does. Who is everyone? Bree inquired. Well, everyone in the paralegal department. Most people in the tax division are aware, thanks to Stanley. How did they possibly find out? We were so careful. Careful? Please, Emily chuckled. Since Stanley was assigned to work with us, he's been trying to get close to you. For one reason or another, he was attracted to you. Your reaction to his smooth advances has been typical. Almost immediately you began dressing more provocatively, wearing short skirts instead of slacks, sweaters that show cleavage instead of blouses, heels instead of flats, more makeup. You even started wearing his favorite perfume, and all those secret gestures that no one was supposed to notice, along with the lunches you shared. You were an open book. Where was I? I thought to myself. I hadn't noticed any of it. Bree couldn't come up with a coherent response. I didn't realize I was being so obvious. It was just meant to be some harmless flirting. Then I became infatuated with Stanley. Eventually we confessed our feelings for each other and decided we wanted to be together, as close as a man and woman can be, at least once. I was beginning to display my frustration. Well, now you can be, I replied, lifting Bree's shawl over her shoulders and opening the door for her. Don't come back before mid-morning tomorrow, I added, guiding her to the front porch. Bree sighed. I never imagined you would. I gave you every chance to stay home with me, but you chose otherwise. I hope you're content with your decision. It hurt me deeply. Before closing the door, I told Bree, Enjoy your evening. I intend to do the same. Bree lingered on the porch momentarily before her silhouette faded into the night, and I heard her car pull away. A wave of sadness washed over me. I couldn't convince Bree to stay. It felt as if everything had changed. Emily noticed my sigh and the sadness in my expression. I can't fully understand how you feel, Ty. But remember, no matter Bree's decision, you have your own path, she said, placing her hands gently on my shoulders. Her kind gesture helped to soothe my emotions. We shared a soft, comforting embrace before Emily broke the silence. Let's have dinner. I informed her it wasn't quite ready yet, but she was welcome to help. As we moved into the kitchen, I showed her the 3 bottles of wine I'd opened, a light white Chardonnay, a rosé, and a full-bodied Cabernet. She chose the Chardonnay. I poured her a glass, handed her an apron, and after a brief laugh, she asked what she should do next. I've prepared some bacon, I explained. I need you to cut 5 star peas into small pieces and mix them with the shredded lettuce. Then you can dice the avocado and add that too. While Emily worked on these tasks and enjoyed her wine, I felt a bit overwhelmed. Standing next to her, I found myself unexpectedly self-conscious, wondering if I could truly make her happy. I moved behind her and placed my hands on her shoulders. The only person I've ever really been close to is Bree, I admitted. It just makes me a bit uncertain." Emily offered a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Ty. Just be yourself, and we'll take things as they come. If there's anything specific I need, I'll let you know. And if you need anything from me, I'll do my best to make sure you're comfortable." "Thank you," I said, grateful for her understanding. "The salad's ready," she said, carrying the bowl to the table, and we settled in for a peaceful dinner. I held her chair as she sat down, then took my place at the head of the table. Before we began our meal, I refilled our wine glasses and we made a toast. "To a memorable night together," she said. "I couldn't agree more," I replied. Dinner went smoothly, even though I had to get up between courses. Emily praised the entire meal, saying it felt like a 5-star experience. After finishing dessert, I asked Emily to relax in the family room while I cleared the dishes. Once the dining area was spotless, I joined her. Emily had been listening to the approaching thunderstorm through the stereo and was swaying gently to the music. As I approached her, she shifted into a playful dancing position, and we enjoyed the soft melodies together. "This is so nice, Ty. I'm really having a great time." "Me too," I replied. "You should know it's been a while since I've been with someone, but I really like you, Ty." "That's great to hear," I said, as we continued to sway to the music. "If I happen to say something like, 'I love you tonight,' please don't take it the wrong way. I really mean it in the moment, and I hope we can remain good friends afterward." Before long, we weren't really dancing anymore. We were simply enjoying each other's presence. My hands were around her waist and hers were around my neck. We held each other closely, sharing a moment of connection. I leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek, and Emily smiled softly. As the moment grew tender, Emily took a step back. "Give me a few minutes to change into something more comfortable, and then we can sit on the sofa by the fire. You can change too if you'd like." I used the brief time to change into comfortable clothes. I made a cup of coffee, added a splash of Irish cream, and settled onto the sofa to wait for Emily. A few moments later, I sensed her presence behind me. She playfully wrapped her arms around the back of the sofa. I turned to see her standing there in a beautiful satin robe. Her hair flowed freely, and she exuded confidence. I reached for her hand, gently pulling her closer. She sat beside me, and we shared a light-hearted laugh as we relaxed together. We spent the evening talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Emily leaned in closer and whispered, "I feel so connected to you right now." I smiled, responding, "You are the most beautiful person I've ever known, Emily." Our conversation deepened as we expressed our feelings for one another, strengthening our bond. She leaned in closer, sharing how happy she felt in that moment. "I feel the same way," I replied, looking into her eyes. We enjoyed the warmth of our connection, creating a beautiful memory together. The next morning I woke up feeling peaceful. Emily turned to me and we shared a sweet, reassuring smile. "I love you, Ty," she said softly. "I want to be with you." "I feel the same way," I replied, and we shared a moment of understanding and happiness. After that, we talked about how special that time had been, and how we looked forward to sharing even more experiences. Emily suggested we enjoy a cozy breakfast together. Later, after we dressed casually, I suggested we go out for brunch. Emily was delighted, and we visited a favorite local spot that had just opened for the day. When I got home, I noticed Bree's car in the garage. I walked into the house where she was setting the table with a thoughtful look. I told her about my wonderful evening with Emily. Bree listened, but she seemed unsettled. "I didn't have a great evening," she admitted. "I couldn't stop thinking about you and Emily. I realized that it wasn't something I felt comfortable with." I wanted to understand her feelings and asked what had been on her mind. She shared that her thoughts had been preoccupied all evening, which led to a difficult time with her own plans. Once we were alone in my room, Stanley's behavior became overly assertive. He tried to kiss me passionately, which made me uncomfortable. I felt uneasy and disoriented as he continued his advances, leaving me feeling pressured rather than connected. Despite his efforts, I felt distant and detached, with no real passion or excitement. Eventually, I simply let him proceed, hoping it would end soon. It was a hollow experience, and I felt completely disengaged. Stanley noticed my lack of enthusiasm, and when he finished, he expressed frustration. "That was terrible. What's wrong with you? I thought you wanted this as much as I did, but now you're acting distant." After a disappointed look, he got dressed. "If you're not interested, neither am I. I can't believe I put in so much effort just for this. I've wanted to be with you for so long, and this is how it ends. I'm going to the bar to find someone who's actually interested." After he left, I felt drained and lay there until I eventually cried myself to sleep. When I woke up, the sun was already up. I took a shower, got dressed, and left the hotel, hoping you would be home. Later, I went out for brunch with Emily. We talked about our evenings, and I couldn't help but feel mixed emotions. I shared my thoughts with her. I realize now that Stanley only cared about one thing. He wasn't interested in me the way I was in him. "Maybe you'll have better luck next time," I said with a hint of sarcasm. "No, Ty," I replied firmly. "I'm done with that. I want to return to what we had when we were exclusive. I want to move past this experience and focus on us, just you and me, forever. I promise to be the best partner to you, and I intend to keep that promise." "Hold on a second, Bree," I replied. "You've been emotionally close with someone else for the past 6 months, and for the last 2 you've been imagining a future with him. Now that it didn't work out, you want things to go back to how they were with us. That's not going to happen. I'm not even sure if I want to be married to you anymore. You've hurt me deeply. You betrayed my trust and humiliated me. Then, you expected me to move on as if nothing happened." "That's not going to work," I stated firmly. "For the next year, I'm giving myself permission to go out once a month, to spend time with others. If I meet someone and it becomes meaningful, so be it. At the end of the year, I'll decide if I want to stay in this marriage. If I'm still unhappy, I'll file for divorce. If I'm happy, I might consider committing to us again. You have this year to show me that our marriage is worth keeping. You can accept these terms or not. If you don't, I'll begin the divorce process on Monday. Let me know your decision." "I love you, Ty," Bree began. "I see now how much I took you for granted, and I regret that deeply. I can't stand the thought of losing you. So I agree to your terms, and I'll do my best to be the kind of partner you deserve." Then it's settled. I didn't know if I'd actually pursue anyone else over the next 12 months, but if I did, I wouldn't feel guilty about it. For today, I'll work in the yard and run some errands. If you don't mind handling the dishes and tidying up, I'll take you out for dinner tonight. This was my way of trying to ease into a new normal without any tension as we started this trial year. That evening, we went out and shared a meal, an effort to find some common ground and prepare for the changes ahead. A few weeks later, everything was progressing well. Bree was acting like a very attentive wife, and it appeared to be genuine. The quality of our meals had significantly improved, especially during dinner. Each evening included a glass of wine. The meal typically consisted of a small salad or a bowl of soup, followed by a modest main course, such as a 5-ounce steak with potatoes or rice and a vegetable. She even included a small dessert. After dinner, Bree would handle the dishes, and I assisted by putting away any leftover food and condiments. Our intimacy life had also improved. It was more frequent and passionate. Bree was open to anything I wanted with her. One night, while we were having dinner, Bree casually mentioned, "I spoke with Emily today." I tried to appear unfazed and responded, "Oh, about what?" Bree replied. You, me, and her. What did she say? I asked. Well, the first thing she mentioned was, let's go to lunch, and she took me to one of her favorite nearby restaurants. I figured it was probably the same place she had taken me before. Over a glass or two of wine and a salad, I directly asked her if she was planning to take you away from me. She laughed and said, no way. Ty and I were lovers for one night and now we're best friends. We'll never get back together like that. Besides, he absolutely loves you, even though he was deeply hurt and disappointed by your actions. I imagine he still does. Bree shared that she told Emily, I am so ashamed of what I did to Ty and our marriage. I know I can't undo it. I promise to be a much better wife to him than I have been in the past. I intend to keep that promise, and I hope he responds. I told Emily about your plan to date other women once a month and then reassess our marriage after a year. She asked what I intended to do. I told her I would try to handle it just as I want him to when I go out with Stanley. But it's going to be tough. I'm sure I'll cry a lot while he's on his dates. She asked me if I thought you would actually have intimacy with other women. I said I thought it was likely, maybe not every month, but occasionally. Maybe there's something you can do about that, Emily suggested. What? I asked her. Give him a choice, but without the option of having someone else replace him if he decides to stray. Make staying home with you so appealing that he'll choose to cancel his date for a special night with his wife. I told Emily I would do that, so expect it. If that's your plan, I responded, I might set up a fake date just to see how you handle it. A few weeks later, I walked into the main offices of Thomas, Dixon, and Harris with a huge smile on my face. Naturally, Emily was stationed at the entrance to the partners area. When she spotted me, she rose from her desk and quickly made her way across the room to give me a heartfelt hug. It's fantastic to see you again, Ty. I was expecting you. Actually, Mr. Thomas was anticipating your visit. I've just arranged the meeting for you to come in. Still embracing her, I asked, do you know why Mr. Thomas wants to meet with me? Absolutely, she replied. I'm aware of everything that happens around here. However, Mr. Thomas will explain it to you personally. Emily returned to her desk and used the intercom to announce my arrival. Mr. Thomas instructed her to bring me in. She then led me to the large door of Mr. Thomas's office and opened it for me before closing it as she left. From his desk on the far side of the room, Mr. Thomas stood up and motioned for me to come over. Ty, it's good to see you again. Please, have a seat. I've called you here for 2 reasons, both of which relate to you, so I wanted you to be aware of them. First, I wanted to inform you that we have revised our company's fraternization policy. It's now much more detailed and comprehensive. This should help prevent situations like the one you experienced in the future by clearly outlining strict consequences for interpersonal relationships between employees and between employees and clients. I have a copy for you to review at your convenience. Let me know your thoughts on it. I thanked Mr. Thomas for considering me and addressing the issue I had previously raised. Without getting too personal, Ty, Mr. Thomas continued, how are things going at home? I sincerely hope that you and Bree are doing well together. He went on. I visited Bree's department a few days ago and spoke with her. I didn't bring up your marital situation, but rather discussed the current projects her team is working on and asked if there were any issues I could assist with. From what I observed, she seemed happy and content. I preferred not to delve into the specifics of the current situation between Bree and me. Instead, I simply mentioned, things are improving, and I believe we'll be fine in the long term. Mr. Thomas replied, I'm glad to hear that. Another reason I wanted to speak with you is to share the letter I'm sending to Hughes, Dewitt, and Louis, the law firm where Stanley Wilbur is employed. Despite any personal issues he may have with Bree, Stanley was instrumental in helping us with a tax case that was beyond our expertise at the time. With that, Thomas adjusted his glasses, took a handwritten letter, and began to read aloud. Dear Steve, you have the official effectiveness report on Stanley Wilbur's performance while assisting us during his time at Thomas Dixon & Harris. He played a crucial role in guiding my lawyers through the numerous challenges of the case and simultaneously taught them how to handle similar cases in the future. However, this private, informal letter aims to highlight another aspect of Stanley Wilbur's performance that falls short of acceptable standards. He engaged in a personal relationship with one of our married employees. This prolonged affair led to an intimacy encounter with the married woman before his departure. Her spouse was aware of the situation, which strained their relationship and disrupted their marriage to the point where its future is uncertain. Generally, the public holds a negative view of lawyers, believing that they prioritize winning over justice or making money over their clients' interests. Our main asset is our integrity. Unfortunately, Stanley Wilbur's personal integrity is questionable. Moreover, his lack of integrity in personal matters could easily translate to his professional ethics. Therefore, I want to caution you regarding the legal services Stanley Wilbur provides to your firm. Once again, this is an informal letter between you and me. Feel free to take whatever action you see fit regarding this lawyer, or choose to take no action at all. The decision is yours. Your friend, William. Mr. Thomas set the letter aside and commented, "This letter doesn't fully capture the injustice Stanley caused you and Bree, but it will prevent him from advancing in his firm as quickly as he might have hoped. That's all I can do for you, Ty. I hope you feel somewhat assured that Stanley won't face no consequences for his actions." I thanked Mr. Thomas for his assistance and left his office, lost in thought. I then noticed Emily standing beside me, observing my expression closely. "Well?" she asked. "I'm fairly content with how things turned out and how they're progressing," I replied. I continued, "I owe you so much for being there for me through all of this. Thank you." Emily embraced me warmly and said, "Don't forget, Ty, I gained a lot from this too. I was truly in love with you while we were together." "And I loved you as well," I responded.